I'm Mary Beth Walsh, Assemblywoman for the 112th Assembly District, and you're sitting right in the center of my district right now. I'm happy to be hosting this evening's task force meeting. I'm joined by a number of my colleagues, and I thought maybe I could just talk for a moment about kind of what our format is, kind of what we think we're going to be doing for the next couple of hours, and then I thought I'd open it up to allow each of my colleagues to just maybe introduce themselves to you, and then we'll start calling on those who indicated ahead of time that they had something that they wanted to say, and then we're hoping to just have a discussion really for a Q&A for the remainder of the time. We are scheduled to go until 8 o'clock, but if it goes a little bit after that, I think that that's going to be fine. And I think that's it pretty much for ground rules. So I am very happy to be hosting this tonight. I'm a member of I'm actually ranker on the minority side of the Education Committee in Albany in the Assembly. And as the mother of 6 kids who are all different, figuring out the best alternative pathways to success in the workplace is something that I've really been concerned about for a number of years. So I'm so grateful that we're here tonight. Maybe what we could do is I'd like to introduce Assemblyman Ken Blankenbush here at the end. Maybe Ken, could you introduce yourself?
Thank you, Mary Beth. My district is the 117th, which is the North Country, St. Lawrence, Jefferson, Lewis, and parts of Oneida. And the snow down here is nothing compared to what we got last night. And I'm happy to be doing this seminars with Mike Norris. This is our 4th. We're headed to Long Island tomorrow and Rochester on Thursday. We've already been out into the Buffalo area, the Utica area, and up in my area before the snow. So we're looking for comments. A couple things that have these mics, I just want to let you know, because we've been in some of these task force meetings. The mics aren't for anything but him over there. So if you think the mic isn't working, it's working through our video. So please use the mic even though you might not think it's working. So other than that, Mike, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, let's go.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mike Norris. I'm the Assembly member from the 144th District out in Western New York, comprising of the counties of Erie, Niagara, and Orleans, parts of each one of the counties. And I'm very pleased that Mary Beth is hosting this here tonight, as well as all my colleagues for being here, and Ken, the co-chair. And also, you know, Republican Assembly Leader Brian Kolb established this task force a couple months ago because our conference recognizes the need and that there are individuals, students in particular, who we know there are other pathways than college for them. And as we've traveled throughout the state, it has been very, very interesting to hear from a cross-section of partners. We've heard from the education field, the business field, the labor field, the trades field, and we've really gotten some very good information as we've traveled through our previous 3 sessions. And so I don't want to go on too long because we're really here to listen to you. And that's the most important thing, is to hear from the stakeholders in this important need. One quick story though, Ken's heard it at least 3 times, but I come from a family, I have 3 brothers. I happen to be the attorney for good or for bad. I have a teacher, my brother's a teacher, the other one's an accountant. The 4th one is an electrician. He's the smartest one of all 4 of us because he knows how to wire a room. You do not want me touching any of the wiring in this room. But that's one of the reasons why I asked to be put on this task force, and lucky to be the co-chair, because my brother Jeff, at an early age, we recognized that it's important to have solid educational skills. At the same time, people who are good with their hands should be given a pathway to that, and that's why we're involved with this. So again, Mary Beth, thank you, and I know you would turn it over to our colleague.
Great, so sorry about that. I just turned my phone off. Dan, Mr. Steck, also from the North Country a little bit.
Well,
How much snow do you have?
about the same here, about a tenth of whatever Ken has, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Although up high in the mountains, we probably got some decent snow. Dan Steck, I represent the 114th Assembly District, which is a little bit north of here. All of Essex County, all of Warren County, and a little bit of Saratoga and Washington County. So Lake George to Lake Placid. So I'm right around the corner. And like Mary Beth pointed out, having these task force meetings around the state is part of what our Assembly Republican Conference does. I'm involved in another one having to do with water quality right now. But these are what we do in the off session to gather information. And so I want to thank Mike and Ken for co-chairing this one. And what'll come from this at the end process is they'll sit down and they with staff will compile a report based on what they learned, and from that will be recommendations of legislation or budget needs. So there's a work product that comes from these task forces, and I'm interested to hear what everyone has to say, but it's a privilege to be here. Thanks, Mary Beth, for inviting me.
Thanks for being here. Mr. Ashby.
I'm Jake Ashby. I represent the 107th Assembly District, portions of Rensselaer County, Washington County, and Columbia County. I want to thank Mary Beth and the chairs for putting this out, and everybody for coming out today. I look forward to hearing what people have to say on this topic, and I'm excited about a lot of the opportunities that are coming forth in my district and just outside of my district at some of the local community colleges, Columbia County or Columbia Green Community College, Hudson Valley Community College, and private business partnering together, and the educational opportunities that are coming to fruition because of that.
Kevin Byrne.
And I'm Assemblyman Kevin Byrne. I represent the 94th Assembly District, which includes portions of northern Westchester and Putnam County. It was not snowing in my district when I left, but I'm very honored to be here and participate in this task force meeting. I want to thank, again, like my colleagues, Assemblywoman Mary Beth Walsh for hosting us, as well as my colleagues co-chairing the task force, Mike Norris and Ken Blankenbush. I know they've been crisscrossing the state like our other colleagues chairing the Water Quality Task Force, and it is absolutely vital to listen to the stakeholders that are affected by the policies that we craft in Albany and the decisions that we make. And I feel that's what we're here for, is to listen to you, the teachers, the business leaders, the folks who are involved in labor, and those who are dealing with this each and every day. There's certainly multiple paths for people to go to into the skilled workforce from high school, and there's a lot of opportunities that I feel that we can shine a light on, and we can do more to better prepare our young people to be successful in New York State so they can stay in New York State. And with that, I'm just very eager to listen to all your testimony and to the rest of the evening. So thank you.
Thank you all, and welcome to all of you, and thanks for taking time out of your lives to be here. When we sent out invitations and kind of promoted the task force this evening, we were trying to get a cross-section of all different kinds of professionals and people. We also do have probably some people that just came because they saw it on Facebook and thought it might be an interesting discussion tonight. So for the purposes of people who may not have gotten a lot of the advanced information that we sent out, what we're really looking for is to get your input and expertise on how best to address the middle skills gap impacting students, employers, and our communities. In an attempt to start a conversation and address this critical issue, the Assembly Minority Conference introduced the Learning for Work program. It's a three-part program designed to support career-ready individuals upon high school graduation. The first part would be a youth apprenticeship program. The second would be an enhanced Regents professional degree. And the third part would be a youth apprenticeship tax credit. So again, as my colleagues have indicated, based on the information that we get tonight and the remaining sessions that are going to be held in other parts of the state, at the end we expect that we'll be coming up with a report which will then roll out and it will be publicly available. So with that, as just by way of introduction, I thought that what we could do is when people RSVP'd. Some people indicated that they definitely wanted to say something and speak, so I thought we could just start to take those individuals in the order that they came in. So the first person, and over here is where we thought the hot seat would be, only it's not going to be that hot, but it's there's a microphone there, and if, let's see, Jim Dexter, who's District Superintendent of Schools for the BOCES program. Jim, where are you? There you are, right in front of me. Would you like to start us off?
Yeah, I have a couple colleagues with me.
Great, well, you can all come on up.
And we did prepare some written documents. You probably don't want to hear me read it, that's my guess, but we thought we'd at least use this as a guide.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Joe.
And I have to say that recently, within the last month or so, I did a full day tour of all the programs offered by the program. And it was just a jam-packed day, very informative, so.
Well, we appreciated you coming out and spending some time, and I know Dan was able to. I haven't been able to get Assemblyman Ashby yet out, but we will. I know you've got Cambridge in your district, and they're one of our districts. How do you want us to proceed? Do you want us? I assume you don't want us to read this verbatim, but kind of go over the major points and then kind of have more of a discussion. So well, thanks once again for allowing us to be here today. This is something that's really important, not only to our BOCES organization, but to all of the school districts in our BOCES. So with me is Tom McGurl. Tom is the superintendent of the Granville Central School District in Washington County, and Andy Cook, who's the superintendent of the Hartford Central School District, and Andy also is one of the co-chairs of our advocacy committee. We have a committee of superintendents who worked on advocacy of our materials. So just a few things. This is our BOCES, just as background. We have 31 school districts in our region, 2,686 square miles. In a 5-county region, we have 3 city districts, 3 union-free school districts, 1 common district, and 24 central school districts. And we have about 38,000 school children that we serve in the BOCES region. This is the topic that you talk about is something we've been talking about a lot, something we've been advocating for. We think it's really important. We think that there are a lot of players who have to be at the table to help be successful. There's not one solution. Some things that work for schools may not work for, the community college has got to be a part of this. Some of the things you talked about, apprenticeships and further dependence on that makes a lot of sense. Because of our unique position of working with BOCES, we're as BOCES working with businesses, we often hear from them, and they talk about, almost on a regular basis, how many workers they have from the age 50 to 64. And what that's going to mean for their business. And what they say to us is, this isn't about growing our business. This is about sustaining our business. And if we can't get the workers to us, then we're not going to be able to maintain our business, or we're going to have to move our business out of state. When you look at our region, the importance of small business, entrepreneurship is critical. And so we have a vested interest at the BOCES of helping bring young people into the trades and to some of the workforce, and that's our goal. I thought maybe we'd just talk a little bit about some of the things that we do. Like I said, I'm not going to read this all, but obviously, as a BOCES, one of the things we can do is help expose students to careers that otherwise they might not see. And we're very fortunate. We have a number of students that are sent to our programs in a couple different categories. So in 18-19, we had about 1,226 total students of the 30. So we have about 20% of all the juniors and seniors in our region. And once again, we had about 1,226 students in some type of career technical education program. We have very traditional career and technical education programs, although that we don't run them traditionally. All of our kids go out to businesses for internships. All of our businesses have connections to workforce credentials, or sometimes called stackable credentials. We also have a P-Tech program, which is a 9th through 12th program, and we have and that it's also part of an early college program. So we have 4 pathways: an advanced manufacturing pathway, an IT pathway, a new media pathway, and a business entrepreneurship pathway. And we also our our P-Tech program and our early college program are connected to one of our local community colleges, SUNY Adirondack, which has 2 campuses. We have classes at the Wilton campus, which isn't far from here, and at the Queensbury campus, which is their main campus. Last year, for our juniors and seniors in our P-Tech and early college, those students earned, not just took, but earned over 1,000 college credits. And thanks to many of your efforts and your colleagues, all of those college credits were free for those students and those families. So that's a really good thing. I think there's a lot of things New York does well, and that's something that we do well. But when we really look forward, and then the other thing is we have a very significant adult education program. We have a few programs that I wanted to highlight that I think are important. We tend to serve underemployed or unemployed adults. So BOCES, our main charter, is we're a cooperative of school districts, but we are allowed to run some programs as long as they're self-sustaining that benefit the community and benefit the local workforce. So our program is called ETA, Education Training for Adults. Our tagline is, "What's your ETA?" And there's a few areas that are very critical and important in the region that we're trying to continue to grow. So health-related skills, the trades, CDL program, we do a lot of CDL. We do the CDL-A and the CDL-B. And we have a certified nursing assistant, machine tool technology, welding, and HVAC. Our CNA program, students complete 120 hours of coursework and participate in clinical rotations for hands-on experience and exposure with a local employer. Our machine tool program is a very competitive program. We run it, it's 500 hours. It meets 2 nights a week and every other Saturday. And we're partially funded, or the students are partially funded by the Workforce Development Board. We think there's great models out there, not just with BOCES, but others, where we have funding for students. These students, we have connections with the workforce, so that the actual employers are part of the program. They develop the curriculum, they interview the students, they make recommendations, and then we have about 100% job placement for those students when they graduate our program. What the machine shops say to us is, we can't take them from scratch. They have to have some skill for us to take them. And we have a tremendous amount of machine shops up in Dan's region, in Washington County, Warren County. We have a tremendous number of machine shops that, it's a very high-tech business. And and because of the complexity of doing the machining, if we can get them those first 500 hours, then they're employable, and then they can get a job. We've also, in our HVAC program, we've had a number of adults that have come from, we had, unfortunately, a GE factory in the town of Fort Edward that ceased to operate, and we had a lot of unemployed folks. So we were able to work with some other funding to help those folks come. They can take in our HVAC program, either evening program, or if they want to do the full program, they could come in the morning and the evening, and they can be ready to take a job when they complete program. I mentioned the CDL program, but as you can imagine, there's a lot of companies, and if an individual can get a CDL-B or the CDL-A, the tractor, and we do both, there's a huge need for people in all aspects of the transportation industry right now. And one of the things we try to do with our ETA program is every single one of our programs, both in the school-age population and in the adult program, has business connections. So even in the adult program, they're very involved. They come, they talk to the students, they try to hire the students. We find that if there's an actual connection to the workforce from the program, the likelihood of a student going right out to the from the workforce from the schooling program to the workforce is really important. That's one thing we've learned, the connection with the workforce. When we thought about next steps, there were a couple things that we thought was really critical. And we don't want this to be self-serving, but I do think it matters. So we think there's 2 things that in New York State would really help the school-age population in particular. The first is the State Education Department is going to be looking at graduation standards. This is a really unique time for us to really reflect. Right now, all students take 5 regents, whether they're a top student or if there's a student who is interested in the trades. We believe that a truly ability to have real pathways in school, not just a series of tests, but actual pathways that are experience-based, that meet the rigor, and allow kids to really be engaged in their education, whether it's current technical education or an arts education, or if they're interested in math, or if they're interested in science, that there's work we could do that would really help students be more engaged in their education. So that's one of the things. And I think there's two pieces. One is having engaging education for the youngsters, but the second piece really is then what are the incentives? So right now, one of the things that is a major incentive, and it's not a cheap program to run, but it is the BOCES aid formula that goes to the school districts. And so right now, the aid is capped at $30,000 of a teacher's salary. So for school districts, they have to make tough budget decisions every year and how many students they can send. Well, that number hasn't changed since the early 90s, that $30,000. We have been proposing, and once again, it doesn't go to the BOCES, this is aid for school districts, but the poorer the school district, the more aid they get, the more kids they send, the more aid they get. It incentivizes, I think, the public policy discussions that you're talking about. Right now, it tends to be yearly discussion, and this is not the legislature. The legislature has been amenable to this. It's just we haven't been able to get over a hurdle when the final budget negotiations happen. But what happens is that money, and it's not a large amount of money in comparison to the state budget. What happens is then it just gets thrown into foundation aid. But once again, it's not incentivizing growing the workforce the way we need it. So yes, we do put more money into the formula, but I think from a policy perspective, the ability to actually target those monies towards the goals that you want to accomplish, and I know other legislators do as well, to have more students go into career and technical education, I think that would be good. Right now, as I mentioned, we serve about 20% of all the juniors and seniors in between the programs, a little bit more than that. Really, and if we're really going to get to the number of tradespeople that we need in all the different trades, we really need to be about 30 to 40% of all juniors and seniors, and so we really have significant growth to go. So we have work to do, you know, as ourselves. We're trying to make sure that we are better connecting when students complete the program. We're connecting them to the workforce, that we're always having business partners. Right, last year we had about 320 business partners we sent kids to internships with. But there's always more work to do. And so I wanted to just talk a little bit about my perspective. I just gave you, just if you're interested, a little bit of information about, unabashedly like to talk about our program because I'm proud of the work and the people I work with. But Andy and Tom and I are here to answer any questions and engage in dialogue and however you think it might be helpful. But we think for the economic viability of the region we live in, what you're talking about is important, and that's why we signed up so quickly.
I have a question. Yes, sir. And I think if I'm right, Mike, I think every meeting that we've done, the topic came out that it should be earlier, introducing trades earlier in the school districts, not just juniors and seniors, but middle school, and some people even suggested grade school. And do you think that that's a good idea? And would that help with the 40%?
Do you want to take that one?
One of the problems that we face is that by the time the students get to be juniors or seniors in high school and can go to a BOCES program, it's easy from the adult world to say that, you know, if you're a ninth grader that's really not buying what we're selling, you're not into academics, you're a very hands-on oriented kid, it's easy to say, well, if you get through the next 2 years, you stay on track to graduation, we'll be able to send you to BOCES in your junior and senior year. That 9th and 10th grade year might as well be an eternity for some of these kids. So to start earlier in that pathways approach, they could get relief from some of the Regents requirements and have a different pathway to be able to get to the same place and be very successful and employable would be a huge asset. We lose a lot of kids before they ever get, because we do have to make those hard decisions when they become juniors. Are you on track to graduate? We're responsible for graduation rates. If you're not on track to graduate, then we have to look very seriously at whether a BOCES program is the appropriate placement for you, because we want high school graduates. So if we could have that bridge that we could get them through 9th, 10th grade year ready to go so that they could roll right into their junior, senior year in a BOCES program, it would be a huge advantage.
Once those students become CTE age eligible, we still have to maintain their graduation pathway. And so when we look at a true pathways program, unfortunately there's a lot of times at the end of the junior year that we might have to pull a student back from their CTE program because they failed a class or they failed a Regents, and now they can't continue in their CTE pathway because now their graduation is in jeopardy. So I think we all agree that if the sooner we can start exposing students to these programs in combination with a true pathway option for them, I think the better.
I think what you're saying is correct. I mean, I think exposure in middle school, meaningful exposure matters. You're not going to send them to a program, but in our P-TECH, for example, we do a lot of bridge activities. We take them places, we get them to meet, you know, talk with companies, learn about the work. I think that's the work, the exploratory at the middle level. But our P-TECH, which goes from 9th to 12th, there's on-ramps, there's kids they can get on, and if that's not for them, they can get off. But it's amazing to see their engagement and their commitment, even in 9th and 10th grade. And unfortunately, we don't have the ability to do that in CTE. Other states have technical high schools where students make a commitment. They go to those technical high schools. They graduate from those technical high schools. New York is just not, the environment, the regulatory environment does not allow for something like that. But I think if you were to say, if you were going to redo the program, if you were going to redo education and start over again.
Oh boy. Better book some more hours.
I'm sure, I think that's one of the things you would say, do we need technical high schools? And I think probably we'd say in today's environment, yes, we should have technical schools. I mean, and I think there's a lot of work to be done in this area, and that is something that could help. But right now, the regulatory and the fiscal environment, I don't think would allow for that. I hope I answered your question.
So you've got a little over 1,200 right now for the CTE. What were the previous year's numbers? Are you seeing an upward trend?
Well, our enrollment's declining, so so that includes our early college, not our 9th and 10th grade P-TECH. There's another 70 or 81 of them. So those areas have grown, and so we've stayed mostly stable, but the number of 11th and 12th graders we have in the region has continued to decline. So we've been holding on to the same number pretty much, and we're declined from years and years ago when we used to have 45,000 students in the region.
You're kind of holding fast despite a decline in enrollment.
We are. But it's you know, if you really look at the classes coming up where some of the schools have, you know, kindergarten, first, second, third, those classes are quite a bit lower as total population in some districts. Yeah, we've been holding our own, but that's some of it because we've put in new programs that are of interest to kids and families. And those college credits, you know, you speak to those parents when they walk out with 30, 32 college credits, you know, that means something to them. You know, we also have, I didn't mention it much, but we also have it's more of a niche program, but we have New Visions Engineering and New Visions Healthcare, Careers Exploration. And so our goal is to be able to serve children of all, you know, of all different needs in our career and technical education programs. And those are very, very rigorous college programs, college-ready programs.
I had students shadow me from New Visions. They were good.
So I have another question. Again, at one of our other meetings, we talked about the earlier you get students involved, the better. The problem that they see is to get teachers from the trades who are making much more money than teachers. How do you get them to come in and teach? I guess one of the that they threw at us is that could very well be a problem to get instructors or teachers to do that.
There have been areas that have been more difficult than others to recruit, and exactly what you said. We were fortunate this year. We needed a new IT technology teacher. Those are hard to come by, people who have completed the Cisco Networking Academy, who understand networking and can teach aspects of the computer science. Right now, we do have, so we were fortunate we were able to get somebody, but welding can be really tough. We've had difficulty in that. We've been fortunate recently, but once again, our workforce is very similar to what I talked about with, you know, when you look at our workforce and you look at the number of individuals who are close to retirement, you know, we have issues as well, but You are absolutely right. When sometimes we hire people in the trades, yes, we have some other nice benefits, but when you look at the salaries that they're making in the private sector and the salaries that we can offer, it can be a real challenge. Yep, you're absolutely correct.
I have a question for the superintendents. Just in terms of, when I was going through high school about 25 years ago, the teachers tried to make sure you went on a path for art and sciences. And there was a change, there. Is there, with your experiences now, have you been working with the local school boards or with your teachers to try to encourage them to put them on a path for the professional skills, whether it be nursing, electrical work, welding, the list goes on and on? And how have the teachers been acceptable to that, or do they understand there's a shift and there's a need within the business community to fill these positions?
By and large, I would totally agree with you. There's been a shift. When I was going through school a little more than 25 years ago, very much it was, you go through high school on to college. That was the normal progression, at least with the peer group that I hung around with. I think teachers today, we want to build successful students. We want to build successful adults. And if you're literate, you're competent, you're responsible, you're honest, whether you go into a college-directed field or you go into a trade, you're going to be successful. And I think teachers have softened that to a lot, that we want to teach those job-ready skills, and we want to make sure that our graduates have those. Our school district, we do a great, I'll pat my own self on the back for a second here. For our school district, we have a tremendous number of offerings for kids, everything from college-rich prep courses all the way down to all of your trades and skills-based courses. All of those things together, we want to have kids that leave and are successful when they leave Granville. And I think one of the things that really works out well is our teachers are open to what are the things that the workforce needs, what are those skills, what are the electives that we can teach. And we've done a lot to maintain electives when a lot of schools have had to cut them in order to have that diversity that keeps kids' interest. And pretty much every year, if teachers come in and say, I have a partner that I'd like to work with in the community or with the industry, and we'd like to build an elective that they could come in and work with us on, we're all for it. But there's definitely, there are more pathways. People are finally seeing that than just the college pathway.
Yeah, and I would echo what Tom said. As a small rural school district, we provide as many offerings as we can. And we start meeting with our students at a very early age about career development plans and identifying potential programs for those students to go in as they start to get older. But one of the difficulties that we have, and our teachers are fully supported on that, is we're very limited in the offerings that we can provide. And that's why our partnership with the local BOCES is so important. At Hartford, we offer an introductory welding course, but we can't offer a true welding course that when they leave Hartford Central School at the end of June with a diploma, that they can enroll in a welding program or walk right into the workforce. And so I agree with Tom that our teachers, our guidance counselors, our boards of education, our administrations are all fully supportive of the idea that every child has a unique pathway, and we want to cater their educational experience towards that ultimate goal.
Thank you very much.
Did
you have something else? I'm so sorry, Ken. I
guess it's one of the advantages of being to 3 other meetings already and talking with BOCE representatives. And when you talk about the trade school, and the way state ed looks at a school district, there's some kind of credits or that a school district gets that they really don't count the trade.
I think. So I think you're talking about the ESSA accountability system. So there are things that count more than others. So there's a weighting system for the programs that students are in. So that one of the accountability is, so if they take a college class, it counts for certain things. If they take a trades, it counts for, there's a lesser count in the formula for some of the CTE programs. It's a 1.5 versus being what's called a 2.0. Yeah. That's the federal government and our plan with the federal government. Yeah.
Mr. Steck wanted to jump in with something here.
Well, first I wanted to thank Jim for his time the other day, giving me a tour of their offerings similar to what you got, Mary Beth.
That was a full day, right?
And I know that Jake's going to try to get in too. And I too was really impressed with the variety. And when I went to high school more than 25 years ago, again, my experience was that there was 1 or 2 paths, and now there seems to be 7 or 8 paths, which is, as a parent now of a high schooler, is a little daunting for me. And I can only imagine it's got to be even more so. I remember how I felt in high school about, what do you want to be when you grow up? That was an intimidating question, but at least then you knew you didn't have too many decisions to make. Now there's a lot of different paths available, which I think is a good thing. But the 3 of you know more about how state ed works and doesn't work than any of us ever will. So, with that said, you know what is doable, not doable. We're not going to shift over to technical high schools anytime soon. You don't have a clean slate. You've got what you've got. Are there 1 or 2 or 3 immediate, we can, if this policy was changed, if this legislation was changed, that we could see a more immediate return on that change in policy? What do you think is achievable that you say, hey, you know what, these 2 or 3 items are something that if somebody really focused on them, they would make a difference tomorrow?
I think specifically for the smaller school districts, it goes back to the financial aspect of that. If we can increase the reimbursement rate on the CTE instructor's salary, it would make a world of a difference. And not only just for my school district and the school districts in the BOCES, but statewide as well. It doesn't pad our pockets at all, but it provides more opportunities for students to enroll in that pathway. If we know that we're going to get some more reimbursement rate back on top, we might not have to cap our numbers. We might not have to be as stringent in the review process to sending students to CTE. We can be and encourage more and more students to go.
Increase in that funding would also possibly open the door to those 9th and 10th graders being able to start programs where right now that's completely off the table. I would say also any kind of even baby steps moving towards those pathways for a relaxing of the Regents requirements for kids that are enrolled in CTE programs would be really, really beneficial. The idea that we're going to launch a full-out pathway system instantly like that is also very unlikely probably. However, I think we could start moving to make steps to alleviate some of the Regents requirements for those kids.
Now, those 2 things that the 2 you just rolled out, is it safe for us to assume that they're not new, that they've been kicked around and churned around amongst your colleagues in state ed? They're prepared for, this won't come as a shock to them if we start asking. No, they're ready, this is not new material. Okay, thank you.
I feel like I'm at an auction. All in, all done? Are we?
We're all done.
If I could, Mary Beth, the one thing I forgot, I did mention the business partners, but the one thing that's happened because of this need is our connection with business and industry has forced us to be tighter. And, we have, there's a colleague here from Curtis Lumber, there's some other folks. And we are appreciative of that because we can't do that without the business partners. And we have, I think, better business partnerships than we've ever had. So we're appreciative of that as well.
We're very fortunate tonight. We've got several members of our Regents chambers. So the first person on my list is Tom O'Connor.
I am Tom O'Connor, Vice President for Government Relations at the Capital Region Chamber. We represent currently 2,400 employers within the Capital Region, employing over 150,000 within the region. In January, we will be integrating with Pete and Southern Saratoga, which will bring us to just around 3,000 employers within the Capital Region. So this issue is very important to our membership. When you look at the skills gap, particularly the middle skills gap, we're faced with a situation where you have employers and employees being negatively impacted by this. And it's real. When you look at just the Capital Region alone, there are 13,000 unfilled positions right now. And when you multiply that out across the state, these are real numbers. And when you have unemployment, which is historically low, you have kind of a double whammy. There are so many jobs out there. The disconnect is the skills. You talk to some of our members, particularly in the high-tech industry. They will say, love the fact that we have Clarkson and Union College and RPI right in our backyards. Love to have the engineers, but I'm not hiring engineers right now. I need someone who can code. And if they can code, they can make more money going to a 2-year than they could possibly make going to RPI. And that's just the fact of the current market right now. So, and it's unfortunate for all sides because our employer community really wants those that currently live and get educated here to stay here. Without college and career ready students, one, we're at risk of losing businesses to other areas of the country, and we're also at risk of not attracting new employers to the region and to the state. So what I would suggest the task force focus on are, I think, some key areas. One, multiple pathways. You absolutely need multiple pathways. No one kid is the same. Their needs and their aspirations are not the same. So I think BOCES is absolutely correct. You want to have innovative programs. You want to have the ability that a student has different choices. Maybe college isn't the right path. Maybe a 2-year degree, maybe a certificate is the right pathway. The other thing is innovation. Let's look at what is currently working. You look at PTAC. We have one of the newer PTAC in the capital region. Campuses in Waterville and Mahonison, serving approximately 24 school districts. And what that allows you to do is you start in 9th grade, it's a 4 to 6 year program. You are getting some hands-on practical experience. There's a partnership within the business community. You're making those connections. You're seeing in real terms what you're striving for. You're getting feedback. And it allows the student to come out with a Regents diploma and an associate's at no cost. And you have the partnership between BOCES, the community colleges, and the business community. So the student has a real support system during the program and after, because they've had a chance to interact with employers in the community. The other thing you want to look at is making sure we keep the high standards. In order to drive our economy, you need students that are graduating with the ability to go to college or a career, and it's or a career. And a lot of times we, in the chamber world, we look at it as it's really a college and career plus degree. And I think it's important to take away some of the stigma that is out there, that continues to be out there. I think that's a key barrier to a lot of allowing for multiple pathways. Because parents, they can have that view, it has to be a 4-year degree. Where I think sometimes that sets up the student either to fail or to succeed academically, but then have incredible debt afterwards. We have manufacturers here that will pay for an associate's degree, a certificate, depending on their need, as long as you make a 5-year commitment to stay with them. If you do that, they will start you at 65, 75, right out of a 2-year degree or a certificate. You worked there for 5 years. You decide, you know what, I really like this profession, I stay. Or you know what, I'm that much more mature, I really know what I want to do, and now I have all that money that I've made, 0 debt, and if I want to go back and get my 4-year degree in a field that I'm now really into, I can do that. So I think one thing you can do on a practical level, a real world level, is convince parents to go take field trips to some of our employers out there. Factories are not the factories of the industrial age. You go to some of our manufacturers around the region, they are high tech. You'll go into some of them, they look like clean rooms. And you're looking at, they need special skills. And you see a lot of robotics, you see a lot of computers. You need people that have that skill set. And I think if parents would go and take a look and see, this is something my kid could really go and achieve great things in. Maybe that would take the stigma out of it. Maybe that would allow them to really see the positive aspects of a multiple pathway. It's not just one. And it also addresses the, should you be taking on that debt if a 4-year degree isn't required? And in the long run, their career and their happiness may be better because they've chosen a pathway that was a good fit for them. And then the last thing is the partnerships. It's very important to continue these partnerships between educators, between the business community, between the community colleges and other institutions of higher learning, the students, the parents, and the school districts. Because I think the innovation in the most successful ways to go about addressing the skills gap, it's going to be through those partnerships. It can't be in a vacuum. And I think we're doing a better job making those connections. But I think there's still a long way to go to make everyone realize that this economy is moving so quickly. It's changing all the time. And if you think you can go to a 4-year degree and come out ready to go in the job that was there 4 years ago, it's probably not going to be successful. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
You know, we heard that story, again, we've been hearing that story. And it just blows my mind when I go to some other types of meetings when a college graduate gets up and says, you know, I've got my degree in teaching and I'm so far in debt that, you know, the one individual that was talking did not go to a SUNY school, she went to a private school. And, you know, I think to myself, you know, you go to a private school, you're going to pay. And, you know, you're not using the SUNY systems to do stuff like that. But everywhere we go, we hear manufacturers and business have openings right now. You use the same figure, 65, right? We've heard that everywhere. That graduates could come out of high school and being trained could walk into a job for $65,000 a year. And I just, the more we hear this stuff, I just get so thinking about why in the world isn't the state ed realizing that? And I know you guys deal with the state ed more than I do, but it's right there in front of us. We hear it all the time, and you know, hopefully we could put enough pressure on them with reports that we're going to come out with. The thing that Mary Beth was talking about when we do this report, this isn't a report that's going to go on a shelf. We're going to be pushing it. We're going to be, out there selling it, and it's a slow process probably going through the state of New York. But New York State has lost 1.3 million people or more now. They're going someplace else. And it's not just the climate, but it's the job climate maybe. But what you just said a little while ago really hits home. We got to keep our kids here, and the jobs that are here, they're not being trained to do. And it's just frustrating for us to go around hearing that when it's right in front of us, and we're just going to have to try to keep pushing it.
And I think as much as you can set different policies, part of it is the communication and connecting the parents and the students to the reality that is there. That I think some parents and students may have a preconceived notion of what it means to work in the manufacturing sector. But I think if they went to a lot of our manufacturers around the region, around the state, they quickly realized that it's nothing like what they thought it was. And they may actually be a good fit for that.
In one of our meetings, I think it was Utica, a young man was there, 19 years old, maybe 20, 19 years old, with his mother, stood up and talked about how he went through, I don't know what trade it was that he...
Crane operator.
Yeah, and right out of school, now he's 19 years old, he's making $65,000 a year. His sister, who just graduated in June from college, has a debt of $75,000 and can't find a job, and kidding around, he said, I can give her a loan. Now, here's the kicker to this story. The mother was there. The mother stood up and said, I fought my son for years, ever since he was a sophomore. He wanted to go to BOCES and he wanted a trade. I fought him and fought him and fought him. Now, that's not unusual because parents, like you just said. But here's what she does for a living. This is the kicker. She's a school superintendent. And she said, my eyes are wide open now to what my son is, has accomplished. And she didn't have to get up and tell us what she did for a living either. But she did. She just said that now, I look at this totally different. And, I just want to throw that out there.
And I think it's important. I think we're fortunate in this region to have many good colleges and universities that produce really great graduates. But that is not for everyone, and I think you need to have options so that when you're in high school, you're not one or the other. It can be both. You can come out of, or you should be able to come out of high school prepared for college or career, and allow the student, if they want to go for a 4-year, they're able to. But if they decide, you know what, maybe not 4-year now, maybe never, make sure that they're ready for a career or ready for whether it's the trades, whether it's a certification, whether it's an associate's, that they're prepared for that.
Next up is the man in the front row, Pete Bardunius.
And as my colleague, who will soon be my coworker, Tom stated, we're looking forward to working together as one organization for the region. And it's issues like this that actually are bringing us together because, some of the, it's interesting. There's been all, as you know, there's been all kinds of talks and conversations about the various things involving the workforce. And one time we had a conversation about it at a meeting, and I was all pumped up. And I was looking in my desk drawers and found some stuff from my predecessor about 15 years ago, opened up a folder on workforce, And it basically read like a summary of the meeting I had just been to. And I thought, well, gosh, nothing's changed. So a lot of this stuff has gone on and on and on. I feel a little bit privileged tonight because the assembly members who represent both where I grew up and where I currently live are both here tonight, which is pretty cool stuff. So maybe I can offer a little bit of perspective there, because I'm a firm believer that Saratoga County over the years has done some things very right that I wish Putnam County had emulated, quite frankly. And, I think that there's lessons to be learned there, which could be helpful for my friends back down south. I want to relate a story that actually happened today. It's a little bit tangential, but not that much, because I think it helps frame the issue here as we're seeing it, and the sense of urgency, which some of you have kind of shared. And actually, Stacy from your office witnessed it today, as did Tom. So there's a company in Saratoga County, it's actually based in Quebec, called Cascades Paper and Cascades Tissue Group. It's the 5th largest manufacturer of tissue in North America, and unfortunately, they just announced a layoff and a closure of their plant in Waterford. They have another one nearby that's staying open, but the one in Waterford, which is actually the cool one in some ways because it has the robots and all the cool stuff, and whenever you visit, they always give you free tissues and toilet paper and cool stuff, but that is closing. So we read about it the other day, 96 employees being displaced. I've always tried to be a very hands-on chamber leader. So I immediately went running the next day and literally knocked on the door and said, hey, I'm your Chamber of Commerce and I'm here to help. And somebody actually opened the door and let me in. Went to visit Emily Mastriani, who's their HR leader, and we had a conversation. And they were very excited that we came because there was a lot of uncertainty, a lot of questions, a lot of things happening. And so we talked a bit, and it's interesting because when I heard about the closure, I had talked to some folks, and they started to tell me some things. And, okay, you guys are all Republicans here, so I'm going to get as political, probably as political you'll ever see me in an official capacity, okay? Republicans, I happen to be one also, believe in limited government, okay? Making government just big enough, but hopefully not too big, right? Not sticking their noses into things where it shouldn't be, right? Well, I found out about all these different programs and governmental things and all these things that were going to be put in place to try to help these people cope with this layoff. And then I said, well, wait a minute, I'm the chamber. We've got a whole bunch of manufacturers and other companies that have been clamoring forever that they need people. So all I did was pick up the phone and the email and reached out to a whole bunch of people and said, hey, Cascades is losing 96 people here. Do you need anybody? Very positive response. So I told Emily, I said, I'm going to give you the floor at our luncheon this afternoon and let you just tell everybody what's going on. Figured, why not? We got all these businesses, major employers, sitting in the room at the restaurant. She gets up, she speaks for like 2 minutes. By the time she left, she had a stack of business cards this big. She was the most popular person in the room, and I dare say those 96 employees are going to find work pretty quickly, including her probably. And one guy, Bruce Dansky, stood up and says, I'll hire 10 of them right now because I need, it was a whole bunch of things, mechanics and a couple, maintenance and this and that. So finding work isn't hard if you are, the right candidate. And the right candidate, I know some people get all freaked out that, what do you mean by that? But 96 people at Cascades from a whole bunch of different walks of life, and probably every single one of them has a real chance at getting help. And I'm very excited about that, and I was happy to facilitate it. And I guarantee you, if this works out, will have cost the taxpayers and Cascades Tissue Group a heck of a lot less than it might have otherwise. And the other thing about this is why these people are such in demand. One of the reasons that I heard recently that a lot of employers are struggling to find people, well, there's several things, right? Work ethic, people that quote unquote want to work. I swear if I had $1 for everybody that's told me that, I'd be a pretty wealthy man because I hear it all the time. Can't find anybody who wants to work. Now, what does that mean exactly? People argue about that. But still, people keep saying it, right? Basic skills. Do they have basic skills that can do the job? And a lot of people get nervous and say, well, that means some highly technical skills. Not from what we're being told. It's basic, reasonable skills that, quite frankly, a lot of us back in the 1980s grew up working on cars. We figured out how to do that stuff. Nowadays, a lot of our kids, certainly my son, do not have those skills and need to find an opportunity to learn them. And then the third thing I heard a lot of is, can they pass the drug test? Now, that's scary to think that in this world it's that hard to find employees who can pass the drug test, but apparently in some of these circumstances, it's a big deal, and it's becoming a bigger deal. And with the issues, obviously, with some of the drugs that are being made legal and all that, I think it's worth knowing that this is going to be an issue. I don't care how legal something is. If a company has heavy machinery or other types of things, there's OSHA standards. It is a really big deal about workplace safety. You're not going to be getting anywhere near a piece of equipment if you're not able to pass certain standards, and the drug test is one of them. So I relate this story to share that, you know, the opportunities are real. They're out there. The demand is there. And when I hear people, just like what you heard the story of, the people that, you know, go out and try to find these big four-year education. I have a degree in physics. I have a four-year education too. Of course, what am I doing? I'm running the Chamber of Commerce. Very different from what I went to school for. But that's all well and good, and there's plenty of people who find great careers for which a four-year degree is needed, required, and I certainly support those opportunities. But the reality of it is you go to something like the mechatronics lab, which is now used in all the community colleges here anyway, Schenectady, Hudson Valley, and I was just with Aaron Kravitsky at Adirondack Community College. We talked a lot about their mechatronics program. These are excellent programs that will help kids learn some of those skills. Again, it's sort of weird. A lot of us learned it playing with Lionel trains and fixing cars back in the day. Kids don't do that anymore. Fine. You can learn that in programs at the community college and be employable. And what we're trying to do is trying to help people understand the importance of this. The parents are thinking their kids have to go to loftier education. Kudos to that student who disagreed with his mother and said, I want to do something else, because it turned out to be a very smart move, and I think more often than not it will. And when I hear that parents are telling their kids to reach for their dreams, all I'm asking for is a little bit of practicality, because we can help prevent some of those dreams from turning into nightmares later on. And that's what I have to share.
Interacting as much as you do with the business community, do you think that there is a disconnect between the business community and the schools?
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because our chamber has developed a business and education committee over the years. And we actually had a pretty strong discussion, because in the integration with the Capital Region Chamber, there's some talk over, okay, which committees are going to become region-wide and which should stay local because they have a local focus. And our education committee, it was decided, will stay local. That doesn't mean they maybe shouldn't look at starting one, say with like Mohonasen schools and all that down there, or in Schenectady or whatever. But we felt that the 4 school districts that are represented in the Chamber of Southern Saratoga County, which is Mechanicville, Shenendahowa, I should say the full name for those of you that are not local, the Burn Hill schools and the Ballston Spa schools, they need to have a local connection with local industry and business. And so we felt that that needs to stay local. I'm proud to say that, at least in this county, there's a reasonably good dialogue. Is it perfect? No. But it is much better than I think you'll see in other places. Now again, I was still cutting my teeth on this industry when I came into the Chamber of Commerce career at the Mahopac Carmel Chamber back in the right around 2008, 2010. We had a good relationship with the school district there, but I would dare say that we didn't have the degree of connection the way we do here. Part of the problem you had too is in Putnam County, where's the nearest community college? You got to drive a little ways. We have similar situation here, but we're compact enough that there's community colleges all over the place. And I will say the community college is looked at differently here. It's looked at more as something to aspire to. I think Global Foundries had a lot to do with that, because Global Foundries came here and they pushed the 2-year program. They built the Tech Smart over there. That helps get people thinking that way. Joe Dragoni, when he was at Ballston Spa Central School District, put a lot of effort into those programs. And I think that those are bearing fruit here in this region. I couldn't say if that's a statewide thing. I hope that it is, or I hope at least the rest of the state that type of dialogue between business and education is growing. Even the connection with BOCES. I mean, growing up, when I was at Ben Franklin and Copper Beach and Lakeland High School down there, you called someone, you used the term BOCES sort of in a derogatory term to kids sometimes. I remember hearing that. Not anymore. you know? I mean, to me, it's a great thing to know that the BOCES program does what it does to help. And whenever we do a workforce event, the BOCES of the Capital Region is always very involved in it. And I think that's really great because people are learning that there is opportunity. Quite frankly, they're learning they're going to cash in on it. 65,000 out of school. Gosh, I only wish. It took me quite a while to get anywhere near that. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Pete, I got a question, and I completely can relate. As a resident of the Mahopac Central School District, I know we've had a lot of turnover even with our superintendent position, which I think is part of that when we continue to have turnover in the superintendent. But specifically to what you just alluded to, what Tom talked about, with the stigma associated with some of our young people that go to BOCES or trying to learn a skill to go into the trades, I know that's a real thing. And just like my colleague, Mr. Blankenbush, talked about the story from one of the previous meetings, I mean, that's something that I lived through. I have friends that didn't go to four-year college like I did, but you know what? They didn't have the college debt that I had. They had a house before I did. They got married before I did, was raising their family way before I did because they made that choice and they became an entrepreneur, did something else. I like to think that I ended up okay, but you know what? There are a lot of different choices and options out there. My question is, I think our friends at BOCES, whether they mentioned it or I just read it in the packet they provided, they talked about even a signing ceremony that they did to kind of help praise the students that graduated their program. To me, that sounds like a great idea because that's one way that you're pushing back against that stigma, and that's one way as community leaders, elected leaders, we're using our power of speech to help push back against that. Is there anything else you think that we could be doing, whether it's in the business community, the chamber, just as a community, that we could be doing more to let people know that these options are a good thing, that you can support a family if you go a different route other than a four-year degree? I'm just trying to think about if there's other ways to push that.
Well, I mean, I think highlighting the success stories certainly is something you want to do. And I think, see, the problem you have down in Putnam and northern Westchester is that you don't have the kind of industry that, you know, like further down in Westchester you have. I mean, you know. Yeah, I know. Well, you know, it's funny. We live right on the Putnam-Westchester border. The companies my wife wanted to get into in the worst way were Pepsi or IBM, and it didn't work out. So some company down in Connecticut named General Electric was willing to hire her. That was sort of the consolation prize. I think she got an extra 1,000 to go there, but it was, you know, a 30-some-odd, no, what am I saying, an hour and something minute commute either way. We're glad she did because when I moved up here, she was able to transfer, and she now has 30 years in with General Electric between the two locations. But that involved a long commute. It involved over an hour each way, and they eventually moved the facilities even further, so her commute actually lengthened during the 21 years she spent there. One of the things I promised her, and one of the reasons I live in the town of Clifton Park right now, is I promised her we were going to be as close as possible to GE so that her commute would be short. So the reason I live in the house I live in now is exactly that reason. It was to shorten her commute because I felt 21 years and on treacherous roads, a lot like this weather that we're having. I don't know if you've gotten hit yet down there, but it's coming. And, you know, you see vehicles upside down on Long Ridge Road and stuff like that. It's scary. And so it becomes harder for people to get to some of the jobs that, you know, that we're talking about here. But on the other hand, I think that it's the 21st century, and I think that we have great opportunities for modern industry, these things, these maker spaces. I don't know if that type of stuff for entrepreneurs has found its way into northern Westchester and Putnam yet. It's a big deal in the Capital Region. Incubating companies that can do stuff, make things. And if that starts to happen, well, they're going to need to hire people, you know, as they grow. And that's a whole other set of problems because now we've actually helped entrepreneurs start companies, manufacturing companies. Then the next question is, how do you help them get enough capital and to build their assembly line? I've gotten quite a lesson in industry, okay, in the last 8+ years that I've been here. But I think that with young people, highlighting those success stories and helping them connect and maybe, you know, putting people together that might help solve those problems. You know, if people are piecing it together. There's a lot of arguments right now. You hear from some of your political opponents, I would guess, that they say, well, yeah, there's low unemployment, but they're all working 3 jobs to piece things together. Well, you know what? I worked 3 jobs and was Mr. Mom while I was doing it because my wife was in Connecticut working at the time. So I'm fully aware of that, and it's tough as obvious. But you know what? That's what you do to survive sometimes. why not take advantage of people that are willing to piece it together like that to help them? Maybe they can work with one of these entrepreneurs that's trying to build a company while at the same time having a steadier income. You know, that's actually the kind of way I did it when I ran my little business in Putnam County.
I wish GE, just for the record, when they left Connecticut, I wish they came to New York. Unfortunately, I think they went to Massachusetts. But that was, it would have been great to see them in Westchester County.
Yes. Well, you know, it would have been great to see them anywhere in this state, you know, but unfortunately we missed out on that one. But there'll be others, I hope. Thank you.
Then that would be Jane Canali. Hi, Jane's here. She's Assistant Executive Director for Human Resources and Support Services for Schenectady ARC of New York. And so just before you start talking, if you don't mind, I just wanted to say I felt it was really important when we invited people here tonight to also to address the issue of individuals with special needs, because we know that the unemployment and underemployment rate of individuals with disabilities is extraordinarily high. And so I felt it was very important that as we're talking about learning for work, that we don't forget that that's a real area of need that I hope that we can work on. I hope it does make its way into the task force report. So welcome.
Thank you. As Mary Beth said, my name is Jane Canali. Excuse me, and I'm the Associate Exec for the Schenectady ARC. Currently, we support about 1,500 individuals with intellectual and other developmental disabilities. And Schenectady ARC employs about 600 full and part-time employees. Approximately 2/3 of that workforce are direct support professionals, or as we call them, DSPs. And I will preface, there's an ARC in every single one of your counties, just that, and I hope you've heard from them and are aware of them. The DSPs are the employees that provide the supports and services to help our individuals live healthy, safe, and rewarding lives. The DSPs work in people's homes, they work in day programs, and at work, providing supports ranging from personal care to career coaching. The direct support professional job is really the core to our workforce. In this era of unprecedented low unemployment, recruiting and retaining a dedicated and well-trained workforce is extremely difficult. Currently in New York State, the average turnover of a DSP position is over 31%. And the average vacancy of a DSP position is almost 12%. And if you look at the national numbers, they're even higher. That's scary, knowing that people rely on us for their safety and their well-being. Without a trained and reliable workforce, agencies like Schenectady ARC cannot provide the necessary supports and care for the individuals in our charge. This results in people not receiving the care and the services that they so desperately need. The public perception of the DSP, you know, a lot of this mimics a lot of what we've been talking about. The public perception of the DSP is that it is not a professional occupation, and that is, nothing can be farther from the truth. It's critical that we raise awareness of the title and the many career opportunities available. Training programs that introduce students to these career opportunities are a wonderful way to match a student with the field and demonstrate the potential for professional development. The Learn for Work Act is an excellent strategy to introduce students to career opportunities while preparing them for work, developing true marketable skills. All of this while building their confidence. These core skills also prepare employees for promotional career opportunities in the human service and healthcare field. This year, Schenectady ARC launched a program where we were approved by the New York State Department of Labor to offer a direct support professional apprenticeship program. We currently partner with DOL to offer apprenticeship opportunities to our employees. The apprentices learn on the job while working at Schenectady ARC. And they also complete their academic classroom instruction, related instruction, as DOL calls it, through a partnership with SUNY Schenectady, where they take college courses to complete a direct support professional certificate program. This academic instruction is also eligible for full college credit. So these apprentices are earning the equivalent of a full year of college credit while working and being trained as a DSP. And this will, we believe, provide an excellent foundation for a well-trained workforce and will provide incentive for students to work in our field who might otherwise not have thought of working in this type of field. We're supportive of the legislation. Extending apprenticeship and training opportunities to high school students is the next step to developing realistic and obtainable career paths. This is also will provide students with the opportunity to try working in a specialized field while they're finishing high school and earning college credits. We believe such a program could benefit both the employers like Schenectady ARC, the students, and to the schools. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. Do you have any questions? No?
Okay.
Thank you so much, Jane. Thank you.
Yep.
Yes.
They were rated one of the best top 10 places in the capital region to work. And for them to have a vacancy factor like they have, there's an extreme need for the people that we serve. So please hear what she has to say.
Thank you very much.
We heard it, Phil.
And by the way, we have heard from ARC in other meetings too, so this, with the same problems, so thank you.
Yeah, just, we've spoken with many groups throughout the state, particularly in the shortage for nursing and our direct care workers, and making sure we find a proper pathway for training, and then obviously the retention. I can speak for everyone here. I believe in this very clearly. We're very supportive of the Be Fair to Direct Care as an overall policy. Our leader, Brian Kolb, has been, and all of us have been at the press conference and supportive of this. And we understand that there is a dire need. And I can tell you where I'm from in Western New York, it's the same situation. I have been there, I've met with the providers, I understand this, and this is something that's very, very important to our conference. And we heard the message tonight loud and clear, and have, since we've all been in the assembly, have heard that message. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. The last individual who's definitely said that they wanted to speak, so I'm trying to go in order, is Stacy Fantozzi. And Stacy, her business is right across the street from here. Known her for years. She's Vice President of Operations for Northeast Fire Protection.
Good evening. Thank you. I'm ready for you, Ken, by the way, okay? Okay. So, my name is Stacy Fantozzi. I'm a very proud second-generation contractor. My family owns the 7.5 acres across the street. It's the original Curtis Lumber Yard. Doug? Shout out. Okay. We are a merit shop contractor, and we have employed people for the past 41 years in, let's see, I wrote down the counties here, Rensselaer, Saratoga, Schenectady, Warren, Washington, and Albany counties, just off the top of my head. That's where our current workforce is from. I graduated college when I was 30. I achieved my MBA just before my 40th birthday. I was blessed that my parents gave me a trade and the ability to not parse out the difference between a trade and an education. So I wanted to thank Pete and Tom for both talking about those points. We keep talking about, oh, well, you know, there's this choice between academics and a trade. Why can't you do both? And I've done both. So I was a pipe fitter, an inspector, backflow prevention certified tester in 3 states. That's some pretty exciting stuff in my field. And when we talk about the workforce development, we've been blessed to see people find their path. And as a merit shop contractor, we believe that your value and worth is not tied to some step raise program. So we have some people that within 8 months are making great money, and some other people took 5 years to get to that point. And both of those folks have value to us in our company. We also believe that we provide an entry-level job that's a path to a career, that you can support yourself, your family, buy a house. You know, I'm in my mid-40s and I own my own home by myself. And that's a gift my parents gave me by valuing the fact that I was a YY fidget kid. And it was really smart. I did well in school, but the idea of locking me down at a young age in a classroom was like, it's like, you know, trying to make a puppy behave for 8 hours. It's terrible. So when you take a look at like giving your children the choice to follow a dream and not put a timeline on that was a gift that I was given. And I encourage everybody here to sort of allow that. You know, I don't have children, but a lot of my friends are, you know, my kid's going to do this and this and this and this. And I was like, oh, okay, see how that works. And to me, some children are very well, my brother, that was his path. You know, he did A, B, C, and he did that in order. I did A, J, Z, K, you know, and it worked for me. And then I had that freedom to do so. So when we have folks come into our facility, we actually have a multi-step path to becoming an employee at Northeast Fire Protection or Burn Hills Fabricators. I'm in the process of starting another company called Silver Fox Fire and Security. And we work with a local company called Corpay, and Michael screens folks for us. And they have to agree to have their motor vehicle record run. And I will tell you, you can tell a lot about the content of somebody's character by their motor vehicle record. They have to know that they're going to get tested for drugs. And there's going to be an expectation that we remain a drug-free workplace because we're working with heavy equipment, high in the air, with big tools. Torque, which is something my physics friend over here will understand, that if you don't respect the machines that are running on that power, it can rip somebody's arm off, right? So we have this multi-level suite of services that we need to provide our customer. And it comes from please and thank you. It comes from understanding how to use tools properly. It comes from understanding how to work with other folks, how to be part of a team, to use a we instead of an I. And these are things that we also have to sometimes go in and teach our employees because some of those basic skills weren't given to them or weren't impressed upon them to be important. That face of my company is not me, it's not my dad, it's our employees. People are going to judge us based on the content of their character and their actions out in the field. So it's very important that when we hire these people, that they have those skill sets. We also have realized that when they go through the process with the company Corpay that I mentioned, and then they come in and interview with them, that there's an expectation of their behavior that's going to be held in very high regard. And I'm going to try to clean this up a little bit. I can't teach give a hoot, okay? I can teach you how to thread pipe, I can teach you how to couple it and glue plastic, but if you can't show up with your own give a darn, then you can't work for us. And that, I will tell you, when you set that expectation, people want to come work for us. People want to have an expectation, they want to know that they're going to be judged, and they want to know that they're going to be rewarded for that. And I think sometimes we're so afraid to tell people where they stand that we have ruined an entire generation of workers by saying, it's okay, everybody gets a trophy. No, I had to learn what I was not good at, okay? And I had to learn what I was good at, and that made me better at discerning those qualities in other people, because if I'm going to lead people, I have to have the humility and the grace to understand what gifts are that I believe are God-given to each individual. We have a very unique group of people. This is probably the best our company's ever been, and I'm so excited about that. But I had to sit back and say, what's causing some of the consternation out there in the field? And it was lack of financial peace. It was lack of knowing how to do some basic things. It was lack of rectifying the mistakes of their past, the wreckage of their past, right? So I started working with some of these guys on how your credit score works. Bringing in a financial planner. So I brought my financial planner in. And she goes through some very basic things with them, like budgeting and how to make your money last and what are your goals in life. And I feel that as employers, I spend a lot of time doing it, and it's worth the time because when they're calm at home, they're focused at work. And when they're focused at work, they can be mentors to the new guys who come in, and they can be a positive power of example. And I say guys, we do have women in our company too. We also expect everybody who comes in, regardless of what professional level, to spend some time out in the field to understand what it is to have to put together pipe 20 feet in the air when it's 20 degrees outside. And I think that's another thing that a lot of folks we've tried to soften some things. We've tried to make things easy. I had an unfortunate experience in, I think it was fifth or sixth grade. The teacher said, you know, if you don't get good grades, you're going to end up being a dumb construction worker because you'll never get into college. And it was the first time I got thrown out for insubordination and not the last. And And my dad was really proud of me because I said, listen, my dad has a degree in biology and chemistry and runs a construction company. We're not dumb people. Do you want to live in a house built by somebody who doesn't know how to read a tape measure? Like, we have basic math skills that we have to understand here. So the stuff that we are teaching our folks here, that skills gap, I see now being rectified when I go and I talk to people like Dennis and Tori at the SCDC, and they're trying to work really hard with the CTE folks. I got invited to come and speak to them, and that was a great honor for me to understand that they're investing in these kids, and they have some pretty cool things. I don't know if you've been up to the Myers place on Henning. I love moving heavy equipment. We have some across the street. When I get a little frustrated, I go out and get in the mini cat and dig holes. You don't have that luxury at your job. Like, you know what I mean? That's fantastic. It's short of a shooting range, people. It's fantastic.
God, if we did that, the Capitol would fall down.
Well, you know, yeah, true. So just I encourage you to reach out to your merit shop contractors in the area as well. We have our BOCES programs. You have different trade organizations here, but the Associated Builders and Contractors, run by Amanda Bertram and Brian Sampson in New York State, are powerful, powerful advocates of companies like mine. I sit on a national committee and local committees for the American Fire Sprinkler Association. We are also a merit shop contractor organization for the fire sprinkler industry. We've been active in these things, and what we have not been active in is sitting in these forums and coming across the street and doing our due diligence as good citizens. And a couple months ago, I needed Mary Beth, and I called her, and she came, even though I don't show up to a lot of these things. We write checks. We're good Republicans that way. But we don't spend time, right? I'm still writing the checks. But what I'm saying is, one of the things that as business owners, we can sit here and tell you how to do your job and tell you what's broken, but if we're not going to come here and give of my time freely and let you know that we need you as much as you need us, I would like to stay in New York. I belong to I sit on the National Committee for Legislative Affairs at the American Fire Sprinkler Association. And my friends from down south laugh at me. Like, why do you do business in New York State? Do you know how much money you could make in Arkansas and Texas and here? And I was like, because it would be so easy for me. I like a challenge, right? But I would like you to make it less of a challenge for me. I would like you to start talking very candidly to students at a young age and say, listen, keep your blood clean, keep your driving record clean, understand there's consequences for your shenanigans as you grow older. And there are good jobs out there. I have guys who have no student debt and make over $100,000 a year. The 65 number's nice. I got a couple beyond that. Okay?
I think she's talking to me.
You seem to be the most, mouthy in the beginning. So I'm blessed to be here. But I want to leave you with this. The average craft worker in the United States is 47 years old. I will tell you that in my 20s, I had no problem working for hours on end out in the field. I am now in the office 90% of my time, and I would not like to be out there. And I will tell you, when I need to get stuff done, my get stuff done guys are my age and older. My best service guy is my dad. He's 70. He's a beast. The man deserves some retirement, and I won't let him retire because I need to build a few more guys up, and we have some great young guys in their 20s who have come to us, and it took us a long time to get them. We had to change our hiring practices. We had to change how we looked at what was an acceptable behavior. We were very cavalier. They're construction workers. Of course they're a little rough. No, they don't have to be. You know what I mean? I need you to think about the fact that we make good money, we produce something that is visible and productive, we keep jobs here in New York State, and my industry keeps people safe. And you can come in as a fitter, and you can end up the vice president of operations.
What's your retention rate?
Our retention rate right now is probably 65% over the past 3 years. Before that, I had an attrition rate that was probably 65%. easy come, easy go.
I'm excited. I would want to work for you.
Well, I will be opening a downstate office.
We'll see how next year goes, Kev. I don't know. We'd love to
I
have
think
you
they're
look.
leaving it outside income, so it might not work.
Stacy, thanks for giving your time.
Thank you very much,
Thank you
Stacy.
for giving your insight. Do I have great people here or what? All right, so I'd like to call up Adam Feldman next. Adam is the Executive Director of Habitat for Humanity, Northern Saratoga, Warren, and Washington counties. Hi, I saw Adam last at the Career Jam Expo that they had up in Saratoga a few weeks ago, and we got a chance to talk again there. But welcome. What do you have to share with us tonight?
Yeah, so, you know, I sit in a unique position. I get to interact with Habitat for Humanity leaders across the state and across the country. So at Habitat for Humanity, we are fully aware of this exact gap that you're referring to. We see it every day. Our volunteers are 65 to 85 years old. It's hard to find contractors who are willing to do labor in general, and when I ask them to do it at a discount, it's even harder. So I see that. I also understand how powerful partnerships can be. So I'd like to commend Jim, who spoke earlier, and Doug Ford, who I see in the audience. We recently launched a tiny house build initiative where it was a nonprofit, for-profit, and public entity all coming together to really push sort of the message about this exact topic. And so Doug's here, so I'm sure he'll have an opportunity to talk about that in detail. But what I really want to talk about is sort of my unique perspective. I was a middle school math teacher for 3 years, so I'm very familiar with the educational field. And now I work for Habitat for Humanity. Prior to Habitat for Humanity, I started basically a social entrepreneurial business locally. We've taught about 2,000 2 to 5-year-olds. But prior to that, I actually worked on Wall Street. And actually, that's what I want to sort of talk about, because it seems that there's a common theme that everybody keeps bringing up. And what sort of struck me at Wall Street, I was lucky enough to meet Tim Ricketts, who's the owner of the Chicago Cubs, and he was one of my clients. and he had a similar passion for what we're talking about tonight, and he became friends with Mike Rowe, who is sort of the gentleman who does Dirty Jobs, and he is a branding expert. This is his message. He speaks to all of the things that you are speaking to. And you know, a couple of common themes of people bringing up, and a couple of common questions is, how do we reach young people? And so I think from a policy perspective and from a leadership perspective, if you guys can help from a branding strategy, I think that is really what you guys can bring to the table. Funding opportunities to get the message out. And so bringing someone in who is world-renowned for dirty jobs, and also making a lot of money, because it's nice when they go together. And that message will reach the parents, it will reach the students, it will reach the business leaders. And so I think that is an actual tool that all of you guys offer. And there are local businesses attempting to do it presently, including Curtis Lumber. There's also Seat out of Schenectady. They have a program that does an excellent job. They have a youth build program, very similar to Habitat for Humanity, but they talk about this training that we've sort of been talking about before. So there are best practices. And most recently, we at Habitat for Humanity have sort of taken initiative on building efficient homes and energy efficient homes. And we have been talking to NYSERDA, and we are pondering partnering with NYSERDA. They already have a workforce development program that's already funded by the state. And so there are some best practices out there that we can copy and paste. And so one of the ones that I think has a lot of legs is they literally, you know, it sort of parlays into what you provided on your paperwork about some sort of partnership between education and the businesses. Being a business owner, being from education, and literally talking to lots of CEOs about potential sponsorships, many of them are very supportive of that idea. And you know, in your paperwork, you talked about high school students. I really like when you can do it post-high school. And you know, you were talking about creating a culture. The previous speaker talking about that culture. If you have an opportunity to train them on the job, and that's literally what the NYSERDA program's called, it's on the job funding, and I believe they fund 50% of the employee's income for the first 16 weeks. And so put the onus not only on the schools, but also on the businesses themselves, and support them. You know, a tax credit is great, but if you can pay for 50% of their salary, you know, I know at Habitat for Humanity across the state, all of us would take advantage of that, and we're all hirers. We're all, you know, we're a nonprofit, but we're all businesses, and we all be pumped to sort of take advantage of that opportunity because we also are facing sort of an unskilled labor gap. So that's sort of my perspective. I'm open-minded to hear your thoughts or answer any questions that you guys might have.
Adam, I just want to thank you for your work in Habitat for Humanity. It's an important mission you have, and we've met a few times on a couple sites, and I just want to applaud you and your organization for everything you do for our communities.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm kind of mindful of the time that we have. I would like to, I'm not in any rush. I don't know that anybody here is in any kind of a rush, and we're not getting kicked out. But I wanted to give an opportunity to anybody else in the room who would have something that they'd like to say. Doug, I saw you. Doug Ford from Curtis Lumber. We've heard his name mentioned a couple times here tonight. I heard you were just on a whirlwind trip. I'm glad you came back and made the time for us this evening.
I just came back from Mexico, and I can tell you it's not snowing there. I was sitting at a board meeting for the Saratoga Builders Association, which is made up of builders and vendors, and you know, every board meeting seemed to have the same theme. You know, we can't find any labor. There's nobody out there. And we would adjourn the meeting, and the next meeting we would talk about the same issue again. So finally I challenged them and said, you know, we're going to keep talking about this, but none of us are really doing anything about it. So we kind of put together a task force that was made up of builders and vendors and educational people, BOCES being a primary supporter. And then we brought in Habitat and Rebuilding Together Saratoga. And over a few meetings, we had a very good group of diverse people that were all kind of working on the same topic, and we were trying to figure out how do we attack this, because it's, you know, so many tentacles to this issue. So we really started looking at, you know, where can we have the biggest impact, and we started, you know, thinking about the high schools. So as part of the initiative, myself and a couple builders started meeting with all of the superintendents in Saratoga County. And we met with a majority of them. And, you know, our impression was that the schools were really pushing the students towards a four-year school, and the trades were kind of left on their own. And I'm pleased to say that that really wasn't what we found when we started talking to the superintendents. They really understood the issue. But they're, you know, as we've heard tonight, they have limited funding and resources to really make a difference. What I did find is that the guidance counselors weren't necessarily in step with the superintendents and the principals, for that matter. The guidance counselors really, from the discussions I had with them, really felt that they were evaluated based on how many kids went on to college. The superintendents disagreed. They said that it's really they're really judged on how many kids graduate from school. But I think there is a disconnect there, and that's based on, you know, a few of the schools that I went to. So through these discussions, a couple superintendents actually joined our committee and have been very insightful in the approach. So what we did is we kind of looked at how do we, number one, get in front of students. Number two, how do we continue to engage the schools, counselors, and administration? And most importantly is the parents, and we've heard that tonight. You know, I believe that parents probably are the most influential in a young person's career path. You know, we've heard it. I actually saw it firsthand. I had a builder in the store recently, and you know, he was talking about how he couldn't find any labor. And I happen to know that he had a 16-year-old son. I said, well, what about your son? Is he going to get into the trades? He said, oh, absolutely not. I don't want him doing that. So this is, you know, this is the issue that we have. We have people in the trades. They don't want their, you know, their young family getting into the trades. So this is a bigger problem than, you know, just what we're talking about. But the initiatives that we started, we did some in-school presentations, and it was done by builders. John Witt, who's, you know, a well-known builder in this area, and Matt Whitbeck, who is a builder, but he's also a building science instructor across the United States, actually. And we put them in the classroom with students, and we got generally about 30 to 40 students, and let them talk about how they got into the trades and what it's done for them and the opportunities that exist. And, you know, we've done that now. I think we've had 6 different in-school presentations. The schools have allowed us to go in for 2 hours at a time, and it's been amazing to see the reaction of the students. The students don't understand what the trades are all about. They think about it in terms of hammer and nails. They don't think about it in terms of computers and the technology that exists today. So we've had some success there. In the spring, we're going to be taking students out to job sites that, you know, have an opportunity to see what a job site looks like today. And it's not just the students that are academically challenged, and I think that's where we get hung up sometimes, that, you know, if a student is good in school, then he automatically needs to go to a 4-year school or a post-education opportunity. That's not necessarily correct. All students should have the opportunity to be aware of what the trades have to offer. And you can see by the handout that I gave you, you know, a person in a framer in Saratoga County can make $80,000. Now, they're not going to make $80,000 the first year, but that's not a bad, you know, wage. They don't necessarily have to go to college for that. It's not that we're against going to college, but like we've talked about multiple times, there's a lot of different pathways for young people. But I believe they're not really aware of the trades option. And I think some of that has to do with the schools, some of that has to do with, a lot has to do with the parents. And I think, you know, you can help us by educating parents about the opportunities, and it's a positive thing. The trades are a good thing. You know, I'm a little selfish being in the building material industry. I want houses being built and remodeling being done, but, you know, I have a 4-year degree in teaching. I ended up in the lumber industry by default. Teaching jobs were, you know, there was so many people in teaching back when I graduated that, you know, I ended up here by accident. It's been a great career for me, and, you know, I think, you know, we need to continue to promote the fact that the trades are a viable option, a good option, and it's, you know, should be considered for all students, regardless of their academic abilities.
That's so interesting, Doug, because I've heard from I hadn't spoken with you specifically about this, but I remember when I did the yard tour at Curtis, talking to everybody from Jay down the line about the need, and then I had probably 3 or 4 different people mention this initiative to me and said, oh, you got to talk to Doug Ford, you have to talk to Doug Ford. So I'm so glad that you made the time to be here tonight to explain this. I think this is really, really interesting, and I love this. What's the what feedback are you getting from the from the students that you've been able to reach out to so far?
So actually, it's pretty good. I'm going to be doing a presentation to the school principals in December, and the students actually put together a video of testimonials from the speaking opportunities that they've had a chance to attend. We also did an initiative where we brought students into the lumberyard. The lumberyard has this stigma to it too. People, it's not a glamour industry, but again, the misconception is that, if you work in a lumberyard, you throw 2x4s in the back of a truck and, you haul them off to a job site someplace. But what we did is we created 2 career paths, one that was sales and one was operations. And we brought students in and we actually let them, depending on which track they went, they got to see different operations within Curtis. And it kind of opened their eyes, especially if you think about kitchen design. That's a big part of our industry. And it's all design and computer and, same thing, we have diesel mechanics and we have dispatchers and we have truck drivers. I mean, there's so many different opportunities that young people don't even think of Curtis Lumber as, a place to work.
One question. The anecdote that you had mentioned about the contractor and his son or daughter that was looking at, how much do you think the regulatory environment kind of shaped his opinion on that, or was it just the nature of the work itself?
So that's a good question. I think it's both. It's hard to do business in New York State. It's hard to be a builder in New York State. The mandates, the OSHA requirements, the permitting process, all the different things that a builder has to go through before he can actually, start to build it gets frustrating and it's hard. And I think, that certainly plays into it. There's still, regardless of all the technology, there's still a physical aspect to building and remodeling. So it's, there is work involved. So I think it's a combination. And
do you see that as a trend among the contractors that you work with in terms of their attitudes with their kids or relatives and, going into the trades, or was that kind of an isolated?
No, I think that's probably more of an isolated case. What we're finding was that as the newer generations of builders come in, they do business differently. The builders, the older builders are very loyal, and they're face to face, and it's not as much of the technology. The newer builders, they tend to want to manage and do things electronically, and they don't necessarily want to go to the lumberyard. They want to be able to send a text message or whatever means at 2 o'clock in the morning and expect it to be on the job site, the next day. So we're going through a change as well of learning how to deal with the newer generation of builders, but we're figuring it out.
Thank you.
To dovetail off the financial piece of being a business owner, for the home builders, the scaffold law is the only one left in New York State, the only state left in New York State that has this. And I have been in Capitol many times for reform, repeal, begging, whatever. This doesn't directly impact my business, but it does have a trickle-down effect with how many builders can actually get insured in New York State. And I think there's 1.2 insurance companies. I don't understand, that's like 2.4 kids. How that happens, that it's easier to go build in Vermont, it's easier to build in Massachusetts. It is difficult to be a builder. And when you start to get to that 3rd story and the insurance requirements change for the home builders, and then you're talking about certain things that dovetail into it in Saratoga Springs with your Victorians and working on those, these contractors become severely challenged. So, it probably is a little bit of both. My parents sent me away to go work for another contractor, to go be nobody and see if this is what I really liked. And I'll tell you, when I came back, one of the things that I found most challenging is running the business of the business. I really would like to go out and hang pipe again some days, because at least I can look and see something, right? I can see, oh, there's 200 feet of pipe that is in the air today, right? Answering 42 emails does not have the same cachet. And doing a 22-page insurance proctology exam every July where I am filling out paperwork and then I'm like, I answered this 4 times already, you know what I mean? Is this a trick question? It is, 10 o'clock at night and wondering like, well, if you just work 2 more hours, then maybe tomorrow will be a little better. That's probably wise, you know what I mean? Because if you really love what you do in the trades, maybe being a business owner is not the best thing in the world because I don't really get to do the cool stuff anymore, which is why I have to go out and play in the excavator. But just dabble off.
And that is huge, and I know all of you are aware of that, but.
We're all nodding our heads.
Yes.
Thank you, Doug. Oh, you got one more?
I'm sorry.
Okay, that's okay.
Any of the professional associations, like National Association of Home Builders or anything like that, have you gotten any feedback or initiatives from them that you think would be helpful with, this type of program that you're doing?
Yeah, the National Association of Home Builders is a big advocate, and, they're doing all they can to support, the trades and the awareness of it. And, I'm happy to say nationwide, there's a lot of attention on this now, which is awesome. But if we suddenly started getting young people into the trades, it'd still be many years before we fill the gap. And, we're just starting to see the effects of the shortage in labor. Hopefully, your toilet doesn't back up anytime soon, because to get a plumber there, it's going to take weeks. And, and I think the other thing that I want to mention is young people, from my generation, we had the ability to go out and work at 13, 14, 15, 16, and we could get a job, and, we learned some of the ethics, work ethics. Young people today don't have that opportunity because, number one, an employer isn't going to hire a 16-year-old because of the insurance liabilities yeah, it's very, and I feel bad for young people because when they finally get into the work space, they don't know how to, they don't have work ethics. They don't even know how to work. And, we're expecting to do all these different things, yet in many cases, their first job is out of college. And, we need to make it easier for young people to at least, get exposed to work.
Doug, do you want to say something about the CDL trucking situation? That's still a the trucking, CDL licensed driver.
Yeah, that's, somebody else mentioned that earlier, the truck, the shortage of.
We had the same thing.
Jim, you did, Dexter.
I mean, we hear that every time too.
That's an acute situation too, because don't forget, we talk about making stuff, right? We were talking about that earlier. Well, got to make something, you got to deliver it somewhere. It's got to go to a port if it's going to be exported or some other location. And one of the things that we've talked about is the fact that, right now, in the old days with the long haul truckers, well, if you can combine, this is something where you might find some solidarity with your friends on the other side of the aisle because of the philosophy of the green transportation. If you could get more stuff transmitted on rail, or for those of you downstate, the river, but for those of you upstate, the canals, let's not forget they're still there, and you can get all the way from New York City to the Canadian border using the same tugboats you see on the Hudson River, okay? If you did more of that, you could have the same, instead of the long haul truckers, you could have short haul truckers that go home and sleep with their families at night, do 5 loads instead of 1, you know what I'm saying? But they can do it. In other words, it's a rethinking of the industry and how it works. But it's the same thing, getting stuff from where it's made to where it's either warehoused or sold. That's going to matter to a lot of people. It especially matters in a place like Putnam County where the trains are far away, the tugboat docks are far away, and the customers and the manufacturers are some distance apart. So it's a real serious issue, and Curtis is a perfect example of that. On the other hand, Curtis Lumber benefited, I keep saying this now for the last 8 years, they benefited from a great opportunity to get a contract with the big giant global foundries. Why? Because they had a rail spur going into their property that still worked.
Right.
I remember years ago, all those rail spurs that used to work on the old Putnam division that have not been there since I was a little baby, but there was a lot of abandoned railway.
Yeah, we got a lot of, a lot of bike.
A lot of rail trails now, yes. I know exactly.
Well, Doug, thank you very much, and I'm sorry it's so cold back here, and I hope you had a nice trip. I'd like to, Joe Dragoni, I saw your hand up earlier, and I really think it might be a good time, if you don't mind, to come up and offer what you've got. So Joe is, aside from being just a great human being, Joe has got, let me do the intro. Joe's the former superintendent of the Ballston Spa School District, and then went over, and I was sorry to lose him in Ballston Spa, but then went and is now the senior executive officer at Capital Region BOCES. So I think that you could tie together, I think, no pressure or anything, but you could tie together some of the pieces. Yeah, some of the pieces that we've got.
Thank you and good evening. I know it's late and I will be quick and pragmatic. Capital Region BOCES is the 6th largest BOCES in New York State. We represent 24 school districts, 4 counties, about 85,000 students or so. Very engaged in this work, and you've heard about all these things, and I've been sitting, frankly, with my colleagues all evening because we partner with so many people. We have over 300 partners in business and industry and the 40-plus programs that we have. So from a real pragmatic policy perspective and the work that you're engaged in, I had a few thoughts. Regarding the apprenticeships, BOCES have really engaged in that work very heavily already. All of our programs require site-based learning, work-based learning, OJT, on-the-job training, or various components of that. So the work that we do with all of our programs, our students are already placed in that. So from a policy perspective, I wouldn't want to see redundancy. I would like to see support for that and really an underlying focus in these accredited programs that we have that are nationally recognized already contain a lot of the apprenticeship work that you outline in your original policy proposal. Second, and to your point earlier, Assemblymember Blackenbush, regarding the pathways, there also is an existing pathway for a diploma where you can have a career and technical endorsement. So support for that type of work, I think, would be important. That is already out there. Students can be engaged in our programs, engaged in the various career and technical education training opportunities across all of the career clusters, and they can have that endorsement on their diploma. So that pathway mechanism already exists in New York State. We have multiple pathways. The problem is we don't have a lot of awareness or support for the various pathways that exist. And that really brings me to the last point, and believe it or not, I'm not going to ask you for any money. And what Assemblymember Steck raised earlier, you know, how can you help? And I think, and Doug really highlighted this, we need heat and light. We need heat and light. And I think one of the simplest examples is, you know, does anybody know that October is careers or was careers in construction month? And the reality is New York is one of 9 states that doesn't recognize Careers in Construction Month. We don't go out of our way to recognize Manufacturing Week. We don't go out of our way to recognize the work we do with the signing events, as you mentioned earlier. New York State, unlike many other states in the nation, does not embrace the work that supports the trades, that supports the skilled workforce, and supports career and technical education. To let a month go by and see the work nationally that goes on through all the organizations, whether it's Advanced CTE, Build Your Future. I have to go to Florida, I have to go to Ohio, I have to go to Texas and North Carolina. I can go on and on and on and on to see the great work that goes in that's supported at the state level. So heat and light does not cost a penny, and to have that type of support, and candidly, it's broad support. I had the same conversation with Associated General Contractors, the same conversation with Eastern Contractors Association, the same conversations whether you're a union shop or a trade shop or a non-union shop or not organized. Everybody agrees, because we're all striving for the same ends, that heat and light and support of these kinds of things is very, very important. Second point I want to raise, which doesn't get talked about a lot, are the DOL regulations. There's some really specific requirements when you're under 18 about if you can be on a job site and how that regulates what you can do or what you can participate in. There's been a little more leeway lately, but it's still a challenge. So I would encourage, outside of education policy, working with Department of Labor or looking in my office, be happy to provide you anything you need for that, to talk about how we can continue to get our kids on job sites at an earlier age. When you're under 18, it's a problem. Right now, we're training kids in mining so they can help get some certifications they need to be with Callanan in their cement areas, and there are other things. So there's lots of different pieces, and of course, all of our business partners want to make sure that safety also comes first. And lastly, which I think is a great idea, and is part of your proposal, is the tax credit. And that's not something that we have a handout for, but that's financial resources that will support our partners. So when we have people at Curtis, placed at Curtis, to have them have a tax credit for all the lumber they donate, for all the work that we do, and that goes for all of our different partners across all of the sectors that we work in. So a little incentive to help our business partners would be great. And the last piece, which also goes to career and technical education holistically, and is part of branding things too, is we do a lot of work beyond the trades. Our entertainment technologies program is huge, and that has everything to do with creative economy in all of these sectors. Creative economy in these areas employs as many people as it does in manufacturing and throughout the region. So to support whether it's various components of architecture and design and all of the work that goes into audio, lighting, every technical part of everything that has to get done in terms of production is a huge sector, and that's a lot of work that we do. Video game design was always a waiting list for a video game design program. The technical aspects and the training that goes into being able to be part and working in that industry is just incredible, and it's exploding at exponential growth. So we always have waiting lists for that. And our engineering technologies program is also incredibly successful. So the notion of career and technical education training, as much as it does holistically deals with our traditional sectors, all of our welders get jobs, all of our HVAC get jobs, our diesel mechanics, the list goes on and on and on. There are these other technical areas that are as important, and support holistically for all of them, I think, is a really important message. Now, if you want to talk about money, to my colleague Mr. Dexter's point earlier 2 hours ago, always supporting aid to help that will encourage school districts to enroll. But the reality is to stand up collectively and say, this month, October, supported something, and we're going to go around the state and we're going to champion this work, and we're going to be able to get behind that, and we can lock arms with partners in the field to do that, is an incredibly strong message, and candidly only costs the paper that it's written on. So I will close on that note, Assemblywoman.
I love it. This is great. Anybody have any questions for Joe? Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Okay. So I had a couple of notes here that Karen Charbonneau. Hi. Would you like to come up and say something?
There's a group of people that I feel that have not been discussed that I want to make sure at least is mentioned. And thank you to Assemblywoman Walsh, who served me my breakfast last Thursday morning at the To Honor and Serve breakfast. I am an Army veteran, served from 1982 to 88. And one of the things that I noticed on this sheet was, and I'll read it with my glasses as my age is allowing me to have to read with glasses, support career-ready individuals upon high school graduation. When I was 17 years old, I signed my papers to join military service in the Army. I felt that it was my duty to this country because I believe that the Army and military service supports us being in this room, freedom with some of the liberties that we have by military service. So at 17 years old, that's what I decided to do, which delayed my entrance into college. Served 6 years, but I needed those support services when I left the Army, when I left the armed forces, to be able to enter go back to the community that I grew up in and find a job. Many of the men and women that I have served with and still continue to serve with the Veterans Business Council at the Saratoga County Chamber of Commerce, and you've heard from the chambers about the collaboration they have with the businesses in the community. That's what the Veterans Business Council does, is help the military within Saratoga County and beyond to find those jobs, to look for those opportunities within the area, to bring people back to this area, to continue to serve as you serve your communities, to bring the military back to serve within the communities that we have here. Interesting statistics and facts which I'd like you to think about as you're moving forward with this opportunity is these 17 and 18 years old that enter military service. Last year I was a guest on board the USS Abraham Lincoln, which is an aircraft carrier off the coast of Florida. The average age on board of the 5,400 men and women was 22.8 years old. We're talking about multi-billion-dollar equipment that is used to protect our country, 22.8 years old. But when those people leave military service, instantly upon leaving, they are unemployed. They do not collect unemployment benefits, and they are looking for jobs in whatever area. Most of the time they go back to the area that they grew up in when they left at 18. So I just wanted to bring some of those facts to you, is that what we do is really look for those opportunities for our veterans, for military, and anything that's done with this is those 1% that choose to enter military service is to think of those men and women that are helping to serve our country. Thank you.
So important. Thank you for your perspective. Thank you.
Thanks for your service.
Yes. And I hope I served your breakfast okay.
It was wonderful.
It was pretty full in there. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I don't know if Phil and Jill Catchpole would like to say anything on behalf of Lifesong.
I will be real quick. I'm Phil Catchpole from Lifesong, the executive director. I've been in the field of disabilities now for 20-some years. I grew up in Lee Center, went to Rome Free Academy, and moved to this area. I watched my father as the director of what was called RDC close down the institution of 5,000 people and move people with differing abilities into the community. There was a badge of honor to work for this field during that transition to deinstitutionalization. A major badge of honor to enter the field, to work in this field. And over the years, I think we've lost our identity. That badge of honor is now a red-headed stepchild. And it's a shame. I have an uncle who is differently abled, and that's how my father got into the field. That's how I went into the field. And we're seeing the workforce dry up significantly. You know, I hear the wonderful programs of BOCES and the things that are being created, but I think our field is missing in that development. There is no real discussion of entering and becoming a direct support professional. I thank you so much for supporting the Be Fair to Direct Care Coalition. That means so much. And you know, we pale in comparison to the salaries of many different industries that are out there. And I ask that you please take a look at that. There is major discrepancy, and when the state of New York pays significantly more than our provider agencies, including benefits and all kinds of things, and they're having difficulty keeping those employees, those direct support professionals, what happens to us? We cannot pay those things. So I ask that when you take a look at the budget and when they're talking about the cost of living adjustment, I'm not talking just about Be Fair, but also the COLA that the agencies could have. Please talk to your members. Ask them to please give us a COLA as we go forward. The other thing I want to talk about is we have a great workforce
in people who are differently abled. And I think we need to advocate more on getting these people hired. They are steady employees. They show up, they do a wonderful job, and they love what they do. If you can find that niche, it works wonderfully. One of the areas that we feel that that's missing, and that's transportation for people in supported employment. OPW has done a wonderful job with Pathways to Employment and the Employment Training Program, and we have State Ed that has come up with Access VR. Excellent programs, great support for our people. But there's transportation, especially in rural areas, that is so needed to get back and forth to their job. I don't know how to come up with something like that, come up with a transportation system, or allow people to utilize their Medicaid card to get transportation to and from that job. But I'm asking that you take a look at that as well. This is a wonderful field, and we have a great sister organization that I shared earlier that was one of the best in the capital region, one of the greatest places to work in the area. Why is that? Because we're full of life. We enjoy what we do, and we love serving people. But we need to create an identity, and we need to be able to provide services for the people that are in need. Thank you.
And I think that this is so important, and I just want to, if I could just get up maybe on my soapbox for a minute. This is something I really want to work on next year, and we're already trying to figure this out. But if you look at, as many of you know, my oldest son, he'll be 27 next month, is on the autism spectrum, and so for him, and being my first child too, that really opened my eyes, because I was the person that was on a very traditional path through my educational journey, high school, college, you know, law school, and so on. And with Terry, we had to start really from a very different place. So what some of my colleagues who are not from the immediate area may not realize is that what LifeSong does is they coach, job coach, and provide supportive opportunity for employment of individuals who are differently abled at a variety of jobs in the Capital District. And you actually do transport, right?
We do help transport in certain areas, but when they become independent, then we back away from that, yes. And it's important. And just seeing, I also let you know, I sit on the Provider Association for OPWDD, and I represent over 50 organizations statewide. So this is clearly an issue statewide. But any other questions?
It truly is, because the thing is that if there are a number of individuals with differing abilities who could work, yes, who want to work, yes, and who would be good employees. Excellent. But it's getting the employers to open their minds to the possibilities, and trying to navigate some of those challenges. If we have typically developing individuals who are having difficulty adjusting to a workplace environment or haven't had workplace experience, just imagine how difficult it can be if you have differing abilities. So the coaching that LifeSong provides, I just had to put in a plug, is really remarkable. And I wish that we could replicate what you do so much bigger, because there is a really great need for it. So I just wanted to give you the opportunity to talk a little bit about what you do. And of course, to talk about the DSPs, because that's a big part.
That's near and dear to my heart. When and I'm sorry, I continue to talk, forgive me. When I started LifeSong, I was working for a fairly large organization, and 5 families came to me and said, would you please start your own company? You have different philosophies, different thoughts about how things should be done. When I received my rate, my wife and I took a look at that, and we said, we're going to be paying DSPs this, and lopped it off of the rate. Then we took a look at, this is what we need for clinical staff. This is what we need for equipment and supplies. And then I looked at my wife and I said, can we live off of this? And since then, the company has grown, and things are great. But that's the philosophy that we have at LifeSong.
My name is Sarah Hill. I am Vice President of Transportation Services for the Associated General Contractors for New York State, or AGC. You guys are pulling at all my strings here. I've got my professional strings that are being pulled and my personal strings that are being pulled. So I'm going to put on my professional hat first and say, you know, from AGC, from a policy standpoint, we're obviously supportive of a program like this. Regulations have long been in place in the education system, which is, you know, not my forte, but after listening to everybody here tonight, between the superintendents and the BOCES representatives, I think that's a huge hurdle to getting people into the trades or really any work organization that is not the typical college-bound path. So that said, anything that you can do to support their existing programs, I think is huge, especially as they try to go a little bit younger. AGC down in Albany, we run our ACE Mentor program, which is 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, and we bring in mentors from our member companies that are local to the area, and they do nights all through the winter. It gives the kids something to do. They're building different projects, and every time that they come, it's a 3-hour stint, and they work on different things, whether it's a bridge building project or a road building or a vertical building. So we try to get involved that way. But I think that there's a lot of great programs already existing throughout the state that either don't have enough support or not enough people know about them. So anything that you can do to really hone in on those programs and support them, whether it's financially or just getting the word out, like what Curtis Lumber is doing, I think is incredible. So that would be really helpful on a policy standpoint. I was at a meeting a couple weeks ago with New York State DOT, and we were down in Region 8, which is the Westchester-Putnam area, which is one of the largest regions for New York State DOT. And this calendar year alone, through retirement, they're losing 980 years of experience. What are they going to get coming in this year? 980 years, and that's only in one region. Now the DOT is a little bit different due to, you know, hiring freezes that they may have had along the way. But in the contracting community and the state agencies really that have to do with construction, we need people, and we need them now. So we're supportive. If you need anything, feel free to call on us at any time. So I'm going to take off my professional hat, put on my personal hat. I grew up in Warren County. I now live in Saratoga County. I went to school in St. Lawrence County. I am a graduate of the Warren, Washington, Saratoga, Essex County BOCES. I did the New Visions engineering program there. I went on to go to Clarkson University. I worked for a heavy highway contractor right here in Saratoga County for almost 10 years before transitioning over to AGC because I'm just so passionate about what I do. I want to get everybody else to do it. But that said, I think success stories can be a huge, it can be great for BOCES in general. So just off the top of my head, you know, between myself, I have a friend that I graduated with who she went to the cosmetology at BOCES. You know what? She lives in South Glens Falls. She owns her own business, and she has 7 people working in her hair salon underneath her. Graduated from BOCES. I was fortunate enough to be nominated for 40 Under 40 Albany Business Review this year. Somebody in my class, Matt Bolton, he runs the culinary program at SUNY Adirondack. He's a culinary graduate from BOCES. I'm a graduate from BOCES. Another friend of mine works for a contractor over here in Mechanicville. He started turning wrench for them after doing the small equipment program at BOCES. And here we are 12 years later, and he's running their entire management shop, and I can guarantee you he makes a lot more money than I do. So I think it's success stories like those that can really make a difference, and it can really teach parents. I think that that's key. We've talked about that a lot tonight. Parents are a big hurdle. And then also what I see is in this age. So we've got a lot of people retiring. We've got new people coming into the workforce. And then we have this middle-age group, which I don't really want to call it a middle-age group because in my opinion, it's really the 25 to 35-year-olds. It's the vets coming back, trying to find something to do. It is people who took a career path and after 2, 3, 4 years hated it. Now they want to start something new. And they have no way to say, hey, I don't know how to swing a hammer. I don't know how to do this. I'd like to try, but I don't know what the path is to get into that industry at 28, 30 years old and not having any experience, not having any skills. even though they do have the skills. They just don't really realize that they do. They just need a little help, a little training. So I think that that's an age group that could really be benefited from something like this as well. It's late, so I'll get off my soapbox.
Thank you so much.
For you, the average age at Hudson Valley Community College's TechSmart facility in Luther Forest is, I believe it's 36 years old.
Wow.
Something to research.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, I want to thank you very much, Sarah. I appreciate it. I think that probably maybe a good way to wrap it up is to just have any closing comments that anybody has, and
we do.
We do.
We do.
We'll be very brief. Right, Ken.
As the co-chairs, Mary Beth, thanks for having us here today. A great turnout. I guess from because we've been to, this is the fourth one, I think you would agree that every one of these, we have different, even though they're similar, there's always some different points of view that we're picking up in each region that we go to. So it's really not, in a way, we're hearing the same things, but we really aren't, because we're getting some new stuff that that we hope that when we put this report together, that we really hit the nail on the head and go out running with this. You know, we're, again, tomorrow night we're in Long Island, and then Rochester on Thursday, and then we're going home. but we really, I appreciate everybody's comment. It helps us tremendously when we have a group to come out and talk to us, and I really, really appreciate it. So thank you for coming.
And if I could just say again, thank you to each and every one of you. You're all stakeholders in this process, including us up here. And for you to spend your time tonight after you worked all day and did your other responsibilities and away from your families, it does mean a lot. And I did tell you, as one of the co-chairs, I would listen. We let Ken do most of the talking as a co-chair. but just some of the themes that we heard tonight, along with the other sessions, are as follows. I wrote them down, along with about 3 pages of notes. P-TECH works. We've heard this repeatedly over and over and over again. That's a program that we really need to continue to fund and to support. Rebrand our career and technical, language, the BOCES, get us away from the stigma that may be associated sometimes with it, and lobbying the state education department to adjust in the changing times, particularly from the 9th to the 12th grade. Engagement in early age, as early as grade school, and the partnerships of getting our businesses and our trades in the schools to expose our children and our students in early age that there is great pride in these jobs and these, what we call, not just to fill the middle skills gap, but professional skills that are needed. We talk about taxes, and we talk about infrastructure, we talk about roads, we talk about our housing stock, we talk about innovation going forward. None of these things will happen without good professional jobs, particularly in the areas of skills. And we recognize that, you recognize that, and this is part of the messaging. Parents, education, buy-in at an early age. My parents said, Mike, you gotta go to college. You gotta go to law school. Great. But at the same time, I think we need to make sure we have them buy in, and also just to be proud of our professional skills. So these are some of the things that I just heard from this group tonight, from our other groups, and we will be incorporating into this report. And I also want you to know that we all value time. Time is very precious. You did not waste your time tonight. We really, as a whole group, value your time, and we are going to do our part as Assembly members to advocate, to promote this most important need across New York State. So thank you all so very much.
Kevin?
We're going?
You're going.
Thank you. No. You know what? I wasn't sure if I was going to make the trip up here. We're in a capital region, right?
Yeah,
just making sure.
we are.
And I'm so glad I did, because I felt like I heard Westchester and Putnam County mentioned as if I was in my own backyard. Because running into Pete here, it was refreshing. But in all seriousness, really appreciate everyone taking their time to share their thoughts and concerns with all of us. As my colleagues have already said, it's absolutely crucial to listen to all the stakeholders when we're crafting policy that's going to affect the lives of the people that we represent. We know there's a need that we need to meet right now with some of these workforce shortages and the need for the skilled labor. And the people that are young, that are being educated right now, they deserve to know that there's more opportunities for them here in New York State. And I think that's a big part of it. And this on a personal note, you know, my father, when he graduated high school, he went right into working for Con Edison and worked as a lineman. For 45 years, he just retired. It was his job that gave health insurance to my family growing up. He didn't go to college right away. He went to night school years later. And that job is what cared for my family growing up. So, I mean, it's just, if there is any stigma, I think we all have an obligation to push back on that. But I know there's things that we can do in the state of New York to make it better. And with your input, I know we're going to work to get that done. Thank you.
I want to thank everybody for coming out. I know that we talked a lot about some shortcomings that we're seeing, but based on what I've heard today, it's not because there's any sort of disparity in innovation that's going on among all of these industries across the board. And so I think it's incumbent on us and everybody really to kind of make sure that the word is getting out there and that we're able to fill these gaps and these shortcomings and really highlight the great work that you all are doing. Thank you.
I'll clean up by saying thank you everyone for coming tonight, and I appreciated everyone's input and advocacy. Sometimes it's the choir, but as Ken and Mike pointed out, as they travel around the state, they're hearing similar messages, which I think reinforces, where we're going to come from at this with from a conference perspective. That it's worth our effort because it's broad ranging across the entire state, these issues. The traditional, well, you've gone through high school, so now you must go to college. We've been talking to that a lot, but you people are on the front lines of that and implementing those, new and more creative ways to educate our future workforce, our young people, which is the most important resource we have. So thanks for doing that, and thanks for coming this evening, and stay warm.
I think I'm batting cleanup.
Oh, that's right.
So
there you go.
No, I just, when a memo went out asking which of us would be willing to host, one of these task force meetings, I had my hand up first, and I'm tremendously proud to have had such a really talented group of people. It makes me really proud of my own community to know not only that you took the time, but that you really had so much to say, and a great variety of things to say from a lot of different vantage points. So I just appreciate all of you for making the time, and I think that you really helped us. So thank you, and have a great night. And I'd like to say it's going to be 70 tomorrow, but it won't be. So
thank you.
Thank you.